Alright, welcome back for another Terraria recording here. I'm going to log in to this world, Loop 10, which I've specially set up for this purpose. It's one of the many worlds that I've made where basically the whole reason why this world exists is for me to run around and collect stuff like dungeon treasures or Sky Island treasures or the treasures at the end of the ocean, or to do things like to farm the queen bee. So I went ahead and I explored in the underground jungle just enough to find a couple of beehives here. You can see I've got one over here to the left of the house and one down here to the bottom right. Now, sometimes you'll find beehives like all the way up, in the deep underground or the very beginning of where the cavern layer starts, up closer in like this area. But in this world, I didn't get lucky enough to find one until I got pretty much down to the lava layers here. Now, you can tell when you're getting close to a beehive when you start to see these honey blocks and this honey, over on the side here, then you know that you're within like a screen or two of a beehive, and I was fortunate enough to find two where I could set up this house and be able to farm some money from them. So, just to talk about like what went wrong when I first made this recording, I actually basically was making a video originally on how to make platinum in under an hour, and I was going to start from the surface of the jungle and just basically like explore around until I found the beehive, but I didn't get lucky enough to find one when I made that first recording, and I actually ended up getting so much treasure that there wasn't any room in my safe or piggy bank or inventory or anything anymore. And I didn't want to continue the recording with me like going back to my home world and stashing treasure and all this, that, and the other. So I had actually made a separate recording where I had already found the beehive and I just went and fought the queen bee. And that recording was good. Oh, there's some police going by outside the window here, so it was kind of loud for a second, that siren. Well, that recording was good, and it worked out just fine, except when I went to go and upload the video, I actually uploaded the wrong one, because in the beginning of both videos I was talking about fighting the queen bee and making the platinum fast, and I didn't realize that I had uploaded the wrong one until, like a day or so after. So then I went to go and process the video that I'd made fighting the queen bee, and there was a problem with the editing software I was using, so now I'm using a different software for that. And when I went to process the video for upload, it actually deleted it. So I'm having to do this recording again, and I figured I'd go ahead and just go to the jungle in a new world so I could go ahead and show the process of setting up the beehive to fight the queen bee and setting up the area of the jungle around it. So I've got the house on the right hand side over there. They haven't moved in just yet, but I have the merchant and the nurse scheduled to move in there just in case I need some extra healing in between the fights, and for when I want to sell items that I'm getting from the queen bee after I'm done fighting her. So to begin setting up where you're going to fight the queen bee, there are a few things you want. As with most bosses, it's a good idea to have an area with a couple of different platforms set up so that you can drop down between them and jump up in between them at different stages of the fight to avoid the boss's attacks. Now, unlike most bosses, you don't want to be too mobile when you're fighting the queen bee. And that's because if you have this area kind of set up like this right here, you can see my sword just barely, almost misses the ceiling. What this will allow me, what this will do is make it so that the queen bee won't fly away. She'll be constantly within range of my weapon, and she also won't hit me with her body while she's flying above me. So I'm going to make this all one uniform height right here, because this section was actually a little bit too high to where she can just fly out of reach of my sword, which you can take care of that problem by using something with a longer reach, like the fiery greatsword or the blade of grass, both of which do really, really well when you're fighting the queen bee. She is not immune to either on fire or poisoned, so their status effects will hit her. But I'd rather take the extra damage from the Knight's Edge and use it for this demonstration. Uh, Now, inside the beehive, you should be relatively safe from regular enemies. Like, there's a chance that a hornet could fly in here, but it's not very likely. I want to talk about one thing to be aware of while you're constructing this arena and when you first break into the beehive, and that is this thing right in the center, right here that I'm standing in front of. That's known as the larva, and if you destroy it, it will spawn the queen bee immediately. So if you destroy it before you're ready to fight the queen bee, just be aware that it may get you killed. And like, you want to be really, really careful about it. So like, even right over here, if I were to swing my pickaxe at this bit of hive to remove it, and the pickaxe were to even just touch the larva at all during its swing animation, it would destroy it and it would summon the queen bee. So it's just something to be aware of and to be careful of. And like with most boss fights, I like to have about 3 levels of platforms that I can drop down and jump up to, and this will help me avoid the queen bee's charge attack. And that top platform is actually where I'm going to be fighting her for most of the fight, when she flies around shooting stingers at me or releasing bees to come and fight me. So we're almost done with our preparation here, and then we're going to talk about how to actually summon the queen bee. I just want to get a little bit more light in the center right here, since, like I said, this is the area where I'm going to be fighting the queen bee for most of the fight. And there are a couple more things that I want to set up. Anytime you fight bosses, it's really nice to have just as many buffs as you can, or as you can get without, too much trouble. You don't always need a ton of buffs, but I just always think that a heart lantern and a campfire setup wherever you are going to fight a boss can't be anything but helpful. So this actually might be a little bit big. Let me see if I still have the heart lantern when I drop down to the bottom. Yep, you can see the buff is still on right there, and it's still on even if I were to sink into the honey. So that's a fine place to have the heart lantern. In fact, though, I'm going to go ahead and set it up down here. Let me move away from that larva so that I don't destroy it accidentally. And I'm going to set up the heart lantern down here. It didn't take hold. Third time's the charm. There we go. And in addition to that, I'm going to go ahead and set up a campfire in the center platform, again, just so that the buff reaches everywhere that we're going to be fighting, and a sharpening station, which isn't really necessary, but it's just nice to have for that extra armor penetration on melee weapons, since that's mostly what I'm going to be using to fighting the queen bee. So with that, all our preparations for the actual arena are set up. We have visibility within the whole arena. We have the ability to jump up and drop down between the platforms to avoid her charge attack, which gives us a lot of extra mobility. And we have a place with a low ceiling where it's far enough away that the queen bee won't be hitting us with her body, but we can still hit her with our sword. So the next step is actually summoning the queen bee. Now, the first time, obviously you can just destroy this larva and she'll come and you can fight her, but you can only do that once per hive. So since we're aiming to do this multiple times to get money, we have to have a way to actually summon her outside of that, and the way is really, really super simple. And in fact, with this stinger, this empty bottle, some water buckets, and where are they at? Yes, the hive blocks that we've mined so far, we have everything that we need to summon the queen bee right here. So the process for making honey blocks is pretty much the same process that you use to make obsidian. You take a bucket of water and just pour it down into the honey. Then we can mine it with our pickaxe. You will move slower on top of the honey blocks, but you can mine as many honey blocks as you want this way. And if you run out of empty buckets or water buckets, well, you're in the middle of the jungle. And there's plenty of water to be found in the jungle just by, like, I can run up here and grab probably at least 20 or 30 more water buckets out of there. Every time you destroy these hive blocks, they'll also release a little bit of honey that you can turn into more honey blocks with your water. And the hives are also part of the materials that we need to summon her. So the last one is we're going to use this empty bottle, and you'll want to bring more than one empty bottle if you're worried about dying, but you just have to drop into the honey, and you can see that you can now craft bottled honey. So open up our crafting menu again, and we see the Abeemination. 5 blocks of honey, 1 stinger, 5 hive blocks, and 1 bottled honey, and boom, we have an Abeemination. I'm going to jump right up against the middle where I'm going to summon her from, and actually I already had all these materials inside my piggy bank, so I'm going to grab my extra honey blocks, my hive, and the Abeemination that I already had. Just one more setup for the fight here, just to make sure that we're super prepared. I'm going to summon my imp to help me fight. And we are going to equip this Ring of Regeneration in place of our Architect Gizmo pack. And we're going to equip a Warding Bezoar in place of the Arctic Diving Gear. So we still have the ability to quadruple jump to move between the platforms, extra defense and mobility from the Shield of Cthulhu, damage reduction from the Worm Scarf, health regeneration from the Band of Regeneration, and immunity to poison from the Warding Bezoar. And for melee weapons that are really good in this fight, you have the Blade of Grass, works very well because of its long reach and poison damage, which the Queen Bee, oddly enough, is not immune to poison, although she does poison you. And the Fiery Greatsword, which will set her on fire, as well as having that awesome reach. So we're going to go ahead and destroy the larva, and you can see that the Queen Bee is awoken. So in this first stage of the fight, she just charges you, and you can see by dropping down between the platforms, you can avoid that charge damage and get in a free swing on her. And then when she goes up here, she's probably she's either releasing stingers at you or she's releasing bees. Now, when you destroy the bees, there is the chance occasionally, and it happened just a second ago, that they'll drop a heart to give you some extra healing. And the Knight's Blade does enough damage that you can destroy the bees in one hit. And yep, during this stage, you just move between the platforms to avoid the charge, and then come back down. She's releasing some more bees, but we destroyed them already. And now she's releasing some stingers. And sometimes they'll hit you, sometimes they won't. Sometimes she'll think that you're about to start moving again, and she'll fire them off to the left or right. So you can literally just stand underneath her right here. Swing your sword away, and you can see that she's almost there. She goes. Alright. So with her death there, she gave us 6 more bottled honey, which is why if you're confident that you can kill her, you only need to bring 1 empty bottle. And we're going to go ahead and summon her again, because I didn't really get hurt very much during that fight. So we've got myself and the imp both attacking her from here. You won't always hit with your sword swing when she falls beneath the platform, but you don't need to. You'll get plenty of damage during this stage of the fight right here. You sit here and wail away on her, and you can see with the Knight's Edge, her health is dropping really fast right here. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and hit backspace to give myself the well-fed buff 2. I had some cooked fish in my inventory, so hitting backspace allowed me to eat them and get the well-fed buff. Just be aware, if you have any potions that will buff you, hitting backspace uses all of them at once. So say you have a mining potion in your inventory and you don't really want to drink a mining potion for this fight because it won't help you at all for the fight. You want to save that mining potion for later. Then you probably don't want to hit backspace. You want to go into your piggy bank and store any extra potions before then. And we'll summon her one more time here. And actually I'm going to fight her 5 times over the course of this video. You can see with this equipment setup and this weapon, and the extra health regeneration from the campfires and the heart lanterns, the fight goes really fast and it's not dangerous at all. It also helps that I have reforged all of my accessories to have the warding modifier on them. So even her most damaging attack only hits me for about 15 health. Uh, but we'll jump up, and this part of the fight is really the best part. You want to hope that she gets trapped in here a lot. And you want to especially hope that she's releasing hornets and not stingers while she's up there, because, like I said, if you do enough damage to kill her bees that she's releasing in a hit or two, you get extra hearts from it in case you're struggling a little bit more with this fight. And see, this is why we wanted that higher ceiling, because if we go to this part with the slightly lower ceiling, she actually does drop down enough to be able to hit us there. So we have plenty of honey blocks left, plenty of hive, plenty of stingers, and a lot of bottled honey now. So I'm actually going to be doing this for a couple of minutes after I finish the recording, just to make some extra money. So I'm going to make more abeeminations there. And like I said, once I have 5 treasure bags, I'll stop, because that should be more than enough to get a platinum, at least. And you can already see the merchants moved in our house over there. You can see his little picture, and the nurse is there as well. Obviously, I don't need the nurse for the extra healing, because we're fighting her just fine without. But you know, just in case during one of the fights she drops you to particularly low health, and you don't want to sit here for 2 minutes to heal up in between, the nurse is over there just to make things faster. I don't recommend actually using the nurse like we did in the Skeletron fight for emergency healing, because especially once the queen bee gets low health and starts moving faster, it can be really hard to get outside the hive and get to the nurse in time to heal. And there she goes again. So that healed us completely back up to full, so without any pauses, we're just ready to summon her again. Alright, and as she comes back, here we go. And how long the fights take just depends on how long she spends in this phase of the battle. Ideally, like I said, this is where you want her to sit for most of the time. But sometimes she charges more, sometimes she charges less. And there's not really much you can do during this point. Oh, although there was one tactic I wanted to mention, that I've got these spiky balls, right, that you find from fighting the goblin army. So if you are having trouble with fighting her, one thing that you can do is you can throw these spiky balls out along the platform, and when she rushes in, she's not taking very much damage from them, but she is actually being hit by those spiky balls. So if you set them up on each platform, then whenever she does the charge attack, you can see she's only taking like 3 or 5 damage right there, so it's not very much at all. But if you have them set up along each of the platforms, then no matter how you dodge through, she'll charge through those spiky balls and she'll take some extra damage from it. They don't last for very long, so you know it's really only worth it if you're already having a lot of trouble with her, or you're having to run around a lot during the fight with her. You just take a couple like that on each one as you're dodging her charge attack, and then when she comes through these different spots in the arena, she'll take damage from it. So, with that, we have 5 treasure bags from the queen bee, and unfortunately, I probably should have removed this little bit of mud right there, because this house isn't super safe. But it's not a big deal. Our imp will kill it. And before I open these treasure bags, I want to go ahead and stash the gold coin I do have. So you can see we just have silver coins and copper coins there. And let's see how much we get. 1 platinum, 25 gold, and 56 silver. just from those fights. Then the extra hive packs are each going to be about 2 to 2.5 gold. Extra honeycombs are going to be about the same. Bee hats you don't get anything for. Bee guns will sell for 3 gold. You can sell the bee nades if you want. I kind of like to keep those though, just because. The beekeeper sword and the bee's knees don't sell for very much. Anything like the bee pants, bee shirt, any of that. Honey goggles. You probably want to keep your first pair for the bee mount to make it really easy to find Sky Islands, but any extra after that, they'll sell for 5 gold. Let's see. Sell these bee pants and the bee shirts. And let's see what we get to by the end of this. So like I said, I already have all these accessories, and I have them set up with the modifiers I want, which is basically warding each time. So there's no particular reason for me to keep them. And I already have a bunch of bee wax as well. I've made all the bee armor and the bee equipment, so I'm going to go ahead and sell that 99 bee wax, even though it doesn't sell for very much. And yep, all right. And like I said, the hive ones and the bee pants, bee shirt, all that, they all sell for 0, so that's why we didn't keep them. So we'll sell the extra bee wax and we'll keep the bee nades. And we are left with a total of 1 platinum coin and 64 gold coins for really just a few minutes of work. And of course, you do, you don't necessarily need to make this house to be able to store jungle treasures. But if you're not confident about your ability to kill her, it is nice to be able to respawn right here to try again. And it is nice that if I ever need to make money in the future, I can just log into this world. I'll log in right here by the 2 beehives. I have plenty of stingers, and I can go hunt for more in the underground jungle right down here. And, the only things I need to spawn the queen bee are the honey that I already have down there. The honey blocks, rather, that I can turn into honey. 5 pieces of this hive, which is as simple as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Stinger, a bottle of honey, honey blocks. Yeah, that's it. That's all we need. So this house, now that I've spent the time and the investment to set it up, will just always be here at any point where I need to make some money. I can log in as simple as 20 or 30 minutes, have a couple of platinum. So hope that helps, and have fun in your Terraria adventures and your adventures, specifically speaking to Gavin here in Plants vs. Zombies 2.